Let's do a simple exercise from Anton, section 1.2, exercise 3b, which says solve the system whose augmented matrix is given by this matrix here. So for the solution, notice that the matrix is in row echelon form. What does that mean? Well, each row begins with a 1, unless it's a row full of zeros, which there are none. And then each column, in these leading ones, there's zeros below it. This first row translates to the equation x1 plus 8x3 minus 5x4 equals 6. So this is an augmented matrix, they told us, and so secretly there is a line here that represents the equals in the equations. I've chosen to name the variables x1, x2, x3, and x4, but you can choose w, x, y, z, or what have you. Okay, and so then what we do is start with the last row, or the last equation down here, and solve for the pivot variable. So the pivot is this one here, x, so that corresponds to x3, and so solve for that. x3 then equals, I move this x, subtract both sides from x4 from both sides, so I get that equation. And then I move to the second row, or the second equation, and solve for the pivot there. So the pivot is this particular one, which corresponds to x2. And so solve this equation for x2. I move the 4x3 and the 9x4 to the other side, like so. And then what I do is substitute in for x3 that I found here. What's going to turn out is x4 is going to be a free variable, and so doing the arithmetic here, I can also see that I can express x2 as some combination of numbers and x4. So I've got x3 in terms of x4, x2 also in terms of x4, and the same thing is going to happen with x1. So I'm going to take this equation here, solve for the pivot variable, which was x1, and then I have x3 written in terms of x4, so I substitute for x3, do some arithmetic, and then I get x1 equals something involving x4. And so x4, we say, is the free variable, and x1, x2, and x3 are leading variables.